Hello and welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I'll be making a live centre for the lathe. So a live centre will go in the tailstock, which is this bit of the lathe here. Now I've had this dead centre, well, for the last couple of months, ever since I got the lathe, and that's been working great. Just goes in there like that, Morse taper. And so what you do, if you've got some material, in the chuck, to get it to run true, you would use a dial gauge anyway, but once you've got it dialed in, you would drill a hole in the end with a drill bit in the tailstock, drill a hole in, and then you can put your, in this case, dead centre into there, and when it spins round, it's supported at both ends. I'll record making the Morse taper now, and also the live side of the live centre. still very hot. Okay, that's as far as I can go with the drills. That's a 1-inch drill bit. So we're on to the boring bar. Alright, we're about ready to set up for the Morse taper now, so I'm going to remove the chuck, leave the material in the chuck and remove it, put the 3-jaw in and I'm going to copy that Morse taper, so I'll do that now. Okay, so the way I'm going to set the compound up for the Morse taper is simply clamp this Jacob's chuck into the chuck of the lathe, and then it's about 1.59 degrees I think for a Morse taper, MT2. I'll set it up by eye.
Three hours later.
Okay, lock that in. Alright guys, I'd initially left it all at 34mm, but then I thought it's going to take forever eating away taper when I really only need to go to the largest point of the taper, which was 721 thou, the thickest part. of the taper, and I've given myself a little bit of wiggle room, so I've made it 745 thou, and I've also freehand. I did it freehand, but I put a shoulder on the end there because instead of having just a right angle, you're always stronger with a shoulder or a radius. So I've put a radius on there, and now we're ready for the Morse taper. I'm making another conical head for the live centre. This was the old one, or this was the first one I made. Each video is a learning curve for me. I'm learning how to do it as I go along, and although in fairness the bearings let me down on this. So this was the first one and it looked alright in there, but I used a couple of bearings out of an old set of pedals and they were that worn it was just flapping all over the place. So this one's getting these brand new bearings in. I've also put a little hole in it, which you won't see until it's tapered down, to get the punch through, to punch the bearings into this housing. So if you can imagine, that's going to sit there. I've got the hole a little bit. Managed to make the hole a little bit bigger. Anyway, that'll get turned down to that diameter there, and then feed the punch through from that side and tap the bearing in. Alright guys, that's the evolution of the two builds. First one, I had to weld it. I machined the cup and then welded it on, and like I said, the bearings failed. And this is Mark II, so it's all one piece now. I've just machined the cup and the taper out of one piece of steel, and that's the new conical head with a hole into. I'm going to tap these two bearings onto this, and then with that hole there I'll tap them into that, providing it all lines up okay. Well, I'll need to make a new punch, but basically that punch will go all the way through and hit that outer race of the bearing and send that home. And then that'll be it for this video. So I'll rebuild this now guys, and then we'll see how it runs in the lathe. So I've just inserted the bearings onto the shaft for the conical head. There we go. So I had that in the freezer all night and it's still got ice on it now, and prior to that being frozen, them bearings won't fit on that shaft there. The shaft is at just under 2 thousandths bigger than the internal diameter of the bearing. But put it in the freezer all night and works a treat, that, guys. So now we'll get this. Now I'll heat this up with the paraffin blowtorch and send them into there then, and that'll be that done. Fresh out the freezer. Alright, guys, that's the finished item. There we go. Solid. And yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with how that's turned out. Like I say, it did take me 2 attempts. The first one I built, I didn't bother including the footage from the first build because the video would have got too long anyway. So, but the bearings I used, they failed because they were second hand. So these are brand new bearings, these, and it's just loads better. So we'll put it in the lathe now and get some stock in, and we'll see how well it spins. So with that, guys, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.